Welcome to Dreamy Nights. Unwind and drift away with soothing night stories crafted to calm your mind and lead you into a peaceful sleep. Each story here is a gentle escape where dreams come alive and your worries melt away like stars in the night sky. Relax, close your eyes, and let us guide you into a world of tranquility. Nestled deep in a tranquil valley where time seemed to flow slower, there stood a quaint little stone cottage. This wasn't just any cottage, it was a haven of peace, a place that had witnessed the passing of decades with quiet grace. Covered in soft moss and entwined with ivy, its sturdy walls exuded a sense of timelessness. The slate roof was slightly askew in places, and the chimney often puffed out gentle wisps of smoke, promising warmth within. Inside this charming abode lived Eleanor Whitmore, a woman of middle age with a kind heart and a gentle smile. She had moved to the cottage 5 years ago after a lifetime of city noise and endless bustle. At first, the silence had felt unnerving, almost deafening, but soon it had become a balm to her soul. Here, she had rediscovered the joy of simple pleasures, the chirping of sparrows at dawn, the rustle of wind through the meadow grasses, and the warmth of a fire on a chilly evening. Eleanor had made the cottage her own in every possible way. The small kitchen was her pride and joy, with shelves lined with jars of preserved fruits and herbs, collected and prepared with care. The wooden table in the center bore scratches and marks from years of use, but it was always polished to a soft sheen. Above the hearth hung an iron kettle, perpetually on the boil, ready for a cup of tea at any hour. Her days had fallen into a comforting rhythm. Each morning, Eleanor would rise with the sun. The first rays of golden light would peek through her lace curtains, casting intricate patterns on the wooden floor. Whiskers, her faithful tabby cat, was always the first to stir, leaping gracefully from his perch on the windowsill and padding over to nudge Eleanor awake with his cold nose. "Good morning, Whiskers," she would murmur, her voice thick with sleep. Before swinging her legs over the edge of the bed, she would slip into her favorite slippers, worn but cozy, and make her way to the kitchen to prepare a simple breakfast. The aroma of freshly baked bread and brewing tea would soon fill the air, a warm welcome to the day ahead. After breakfast, Eleanor would take her basket and venture into her garden, a lush expanse she had cultivated with care over the years. Lavender, rosemary, and chamomile grew in neat rows, their scents mingling to create a soothing melody for the senses. Beyond the garden lay the meadow, a vast, untamed stretch of land that seemed to ripple like a golden sea under the sunlight. The meadow was Eleanor's favorite place, a sanctuary where she often found herself lost in thought. She loved to wander among the wildflowers, her fingers brushing against the soft petals of daisies and buttercups. Sometimes she would bring a book and sit beneath the shade of the old oak tree that stood proudly at the meadow center. Its gnarled roots seemed to stretch endlessly, anchoring it to the earth, while its branches reached skyward, as if whispering secrets to the clouds. One particular autumn morning, the air carried a crispness that hinted at the approaching winter. The leaves on the trees had begun to turn shades of amber and crimson, and the meadow was dotted with the last blooms of the season. Eleanor had planned to gather chamomile and lavender to dry for tea, but as she stepped into the meadow, something unusual caught her eye. There, near the base of the old oak tree, was a glimmer of light. At first, she thought it might be a trick of the sun reflecting off dew, but as she drew closer, she realized it was something more tangible, kneeling among the roots. Eleanor found a small golden key. It was no ordinary key. Intricate engravings of leaves and stars adorned its surface, and it glowed faintly, even in the soft morning light. It felt warm in her hand, as though it were alive. "How curious," Eleanor whispered, turning the key over to inspect it. It was surprisingly heavy for its size, and the craftsmanship was unlike anything she had seen before. She glanced around, half expecting someone to appear and claim the key, but the meadow was empty. Puzzled but intrigued, Eleanor slipped the key into her pocket and carried on with her day. Yet the mystery lingered in her mind. Back at the cottage, Eleanor set the key on the small wooden table by the fireplace. She couldn't resist glancing at it now and then as she went about her chores. Whiskers, ever curious, hopped onto the table and sniffed at the key before curling up beside it, as if guarding it. As the day turned to evening, the cottage was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. Eleanor lit a few candles and stoked the fire, settling into her favorite armchair with a cup of chamomile tea. The key sat on the table, catching the flickering light of the fire. It was then that she heard a soft, almost imperceptible knock at the door. Startled, Eleanor set her cup down and rose to her feet. Visitors were rare in this secluded part of the valley, especially at this hour. When she opened the door, she found no one there. The night was quiet, save for the sound of crickets chirping and the distant hoot of an owl. But as Eleanor looked down, she saw a small envelope resting on the doorstep. She picked it up carefully and carried it inside. The envelope was made of thick, cream-colored paper, and her name was written on the front in elegant handwriting. Inside was a note. "The key is yours to keep. Follow where it leads, and you will find what you seek." Eleanor's heart raced as she read the words. Who could have sent this? And what did it mean? She glanced at the key, now gleaming brighter than before. It seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, as if urging her to act. That night, Eleanor barely slept. She lay in bed, the key resting on the bedside table, its presence a comforting yet mysterious weight. The note's words echoed in her mind, "Follow where it leads." As the first light of dawn crept into the room, Eleanor made a decision. She would follow the key's guidance wherever it might take her. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would change her life forever. Eleanor awoke to the soft amber light of dawn spilling through her window, the sky brushed with hues of peach and lavender. The golden key rested on the small table beside her bed, still glowing faintly, as if it had absorbed the light of the fireplace the night before. Whiskers sat at the foot of the bed, his emerald green eyes fixed on the key. He had an uncanny way of sensing when something was out of the ordinary, and this key was certainly no exception. "You're as curious as I am, aren't you?" Whiskers Eleanor murmured, scratching the tabby behind his ears. The cat purred in response, but didn't take his gaze off the mysterious object. After a simple breakfast of toasted bread with honey and a steaming cup of chamomile tea, Eleanor wrapped herself in a thick cardigan, tucked the key into her pocket, and stepped outside. The air was cool and carried the earthy scent of fallen leaves. The meadow stretched out before her, golden and serene, with the old oak tree standing proud in its center. Her thoughts wandered back to the note, "Follow where it leads and you will find what you seek." But how did one follow a key? Eleanor had no idea, but something deep within her urged her to return to the oak tree, where she had first found it. The grass whispered around her ankles as Eleanor crossed the meadow. The morning light painted the landscape in soft golds and greens, and the distant hills seemed to shimmer under the sun's gentle gaze. When she reached the oak tree, she placed a hand on its rough bark, feeling its age-old strength. The key in her pocket seemed to hum faintly, a vibration so subtle it was almost imperceptible. She pulled it out and held it in her palm. "What are you trying to tell me?" she whispered. As if in response, a soft breeze stirred the leaves above, and Eleanor noticed something she hadn't before, a faint outline in the ground near the tree's base. Kneeling down, she brushed away the fallen leaves and loose dirt to reveal a small iron trapdoor. Its surface was rusted but adorned with an intricate design that mirrored the engravings on the key. Her heart raced as she fitted the golden key into the lock. It turned smoothly, and with a faint click, the trapdoor creaked open to reveal a set of stone steps descending into darkness. For a moment, Eleanor hesitated. The darkness seemed to breathe, carrying with it a faint, musty scent. But curiosity outweighed her fear, and she lit the small lantern she had brought, its warm glow chasing away the shadows. "Stay here, Whiskers," she said, glancing back at the cat, who had followed her to the tree. But Whiskers had no intention of being left behind. He meowed insistently and darted ahead of her, his tail held high. Eleanor sighed, but couldn't help smiling. "All right, then." Lead the way. The stairs spiraled downward, the air growing cooler with each step. The walls were made of ancient stone, their surfaces damp and covered in moss. Eleanor's lantern cast flickering light, revealing carvings along the walls, symbols and patterns that seemed to tell a story she couldn't yet decipher. At the bottom of the stairs, the passage opened into a circular chamber. The room was small but breathtaking. The walls were lined with shelves holding dusty books, vials of liquid in every color, and small trinkets that seemed to hum with faint energy. At the center of the room stood a wooden pedestal, and atop it lay a book bound in rich, deep green leather. Whiskers leaped onto the pedestal and sniffed at the book before settling beside it, his tail curling around the base. Eleanor approached cautiously, her lantern illuminating the intricate design on the book's cover. A golden tree, its branches and roots interwoven like an endless knot. She reached out and gently opened the book. Its pages were thick and yellowed, filled with elegant handwriting and detailed illustrations. The first page bore a title: "The Secrets of the Valley." Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. The book seemed to chronicle the history of the land she now called home. It spoke of a time when the valley was alive with magic, protected by a secret society known as the Keepers of the Key. Their task was to safeguard the balance between nature and the mystical forces that dwelled beneath the earth. As she turned the pages, one passage stood out. "The golden key unlocks the path to the heart of the valley. Only the one chosen by the meadow may wield it. Follow its guidance to awaken what has long been dormant." Eleanor's pulse quickened. She had always felt a connection to this place, but this was something beyond her understanding. Why had the meadow chosen her? Before she could delve deeper, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. It wasn't coming from the book or her lantern. It seemed to resonate from the walls themselves. Whiskers sat up, his ears twitching. The sound grew louder, more insistent, and Eleanor realized it was coming from the far wall. She walked toward it, her fingers brushing over the rough stone surface. To her surprise, a section of the wall gave way, revealing a hidden door. The door opened into another passage, this one narrower and filled with a soft, golden light. Eleanor hesitated for only a moment before stepping through, Whiskers trotting confidently beside her. The passage led to a cavern unlike anything Eleanor had ever seen. The walls glowed with an inner light, their surfaces embedded with crystals that shimmered in hues of green and gold. At the center of the cavern was a pool of water so still and clear it seemed like a sheet of glass. Above the pool floated a single, glowing orb, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. Eleanor felt an overwhelming sense of calm wash over her as she approached it. The golden key in her hand grew warm, and as she held it out toward the orb, the two seemed to resonate with each other. The orb brightened, casting the cavern in a radiant glow. A voice, soft and melodic, filled the air. "Welcome, Keeper. You have found the heart of the meadow. The balance of the valley rests in your hands." Eleanor's eyes widened, but before she could respond, the orb dimmed, its light now flowing into the pool below. The water rippled, and an image began to form on its surface. A vision of the meadow, vibrant and alive, but also fragile. Dark shadows crept along its edges, threatening to overtake its beauty. Eleanor understood then that her journey was only beginning. The golden key had led her here, but it was up to her to protect the valley and ensure its magic endured. As the vision faded, the cavern grew still once more. Whiskers rubbed against her leg, grounding her in the moment. Eleanor tucked the key safely into her pocket and turned to leave the cavern, her heart filled with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Above ground, the meadow awaited, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Eleanor knew her peaceful life at the cottage would never be the same, but she welcomed the adventure ahead. Eleanor stood at the edge of the meadow as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in brilliant strokes of orange and violet. The golden key felt heavier in her pocket now, as if it carried not just its own weight, but the burden of the revelation she'd uncovered. The valley was no longer just her sanctuary, it was a place imbued with ancient magic, its beauty and harmony dependent on her stewardship. The meadow had chosen her, but what did that truly mean? And what were the shadows she'd seen creeping at its edges? As Eleanor walked back toward the cottage, Whiskers padded silently at her side. The familiar comforts of home were waiting, her kettle, her books, the glow of the fire. But she knew tonight would not be like the others. When she stepped inside, she placed the golden key on the small table by the hearth. The glow it emitted was faint now, but steady, as if it were patiently waiting for her next move. Eleanor sank into her favorite armchair, her mind swirling with questions. She reached for the book she'd taken from the hidden chamber beneath the oak tree, turning its yellowed pages carefully. The script was elegant yet mysterious, full of symbols and illustrations. One page in particular caught her attention. It depicted the meadow as a living entity, its magic sustained by 5 heartstones scattered throughout the valley. These stones, each tied to an element, earth, water, fire, air, and spirit, kept the balance between the natural and mystical worlds. Beneath the illustration was a warning. When the heartstones falter, shadows will rise, feeding on imbalance. Only the keeper may restore the light. Eleanor's fingers traced the words. She didn't know where to begin, but the urgency in the warning was undeniable. She had to act. As the fire crackled softly in the hearth, a sharp knock startled Eleanor from her thoughts. It was louder than the soft tap she'd heard the night before, and it came again, insistent. Who could it be at this hour, she murmured, rising to her feet. Whiskers darted to the door, his tail flicking with curiosity. When Eleanor opened the door, she found a figure standing in the dim light of the porch lantern. It was an elderly woman, her silver hair tied back in a loose braid, her deep green cloak blending almost seamlessly with the surrounding shadows. "Good evening," the woman said, her voice rich and warm. "I apologize for arriving unannounced, but time is of the essence." Eleanor blinked, taken aback. "Do I know you?" The woman smiled faintly. "Not yet. But I know you, Eleanor, and I know what you found." Her gaze shifted to the golden key on the table behind Eleanor. "Who are you?" Eleanor asked, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. "My name is Lysandra," the woman said, stepping inside uninvited but with an air of familiarity. "I am one of the last of the keepers who came before you." Eleanor's heart quickened. The keepers? But the book said they were long gone. "Most are," Lysandra said, her expression shadowed. "The balance has been neglected for many years, and the valley has suffered for it. The shadows you saw in the Heartstone's vision, they are the result of this neglect." Eleanor motioned to the armchair opposite hers. "Please, sit. Tell me more." Lysandra lowered herself into the chair with a grace that belied her years. She looked around the cottage, her sharp eyes lingering on the books, the herbs drying by the fire, and the golden key glowing softly in the corner. "You've already felt it, haven't you?" Lysandra said. "The valley chose you for a reason. Your connection to this place runs deeper than you realize." Eleanor nodded slowly. "I've always felt at peace here, but I never imagined it was because of magic." Lysandra leaned forward. "The Heartstones are weakening. If they fail completely, the shadows will consume the valley. It will become a place of desolation, where nothing grows, and no peace remains." Eleanor shivered, the weight of Lysandra's words settling over her. "What can I do?" "You must find the Heartstones and restore their balance," Lysandra said. "Each stone has a guardian, and each guardian will present a challenge. Only by proving yourself will you gain their aid." Lysandra reached into her cloak and pulled out a small leather pouch. She handed it to Eleanor. Inside was a delicate compass, its needle unlike any she had seen. Instead of pointing north, it spun lazily, glowing faintly before settling in a direction. "This will guide you," Lysandra said. "But be warned, each journey will test you, not just in strength but in heart." Eleanor took the compass, its weight reassuring in her hand. "How will I know where to begin?" "The key will tell you," Lysandra said, rising to her feet. "Trust it. Trust yourself." Before Eleanor could ask more, Lysandra turned toward the door. "I cannot stay," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "But we will meet again." And with that, the woman vanished into the night, leaving Eleanor with more questions than answers. The next morning, Eleanor stood at the edge of the meadow, the golden key in one hand and the compass in the other. The needle pulsed faintly, pointing toward the dense forest on the far side of the valley. Whiskers sat beside her, his tail twitching as if eager to begin. "Well," Whiskers, Eleanor said with a nervous smile, "it looks like we're going on an adventure." The forest loomed ahead, its trees tall and ancient, their branches forming a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the ground. As Eleanor stepped beneath the trees, the air grew cooler, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The compass led her deeper into the woods, where the sounds of birds and rustling leaves grew softer, replaced by an eerie stillness. After what felt like hours, she emerged into a small clearing. At its center was a boulder covered in moss, and embedded in its surface was a crystal the color of rich, dark soil. It seemed to pulse faintly, its energy matching the rhythm of Eleanor's heartbeat. "The Earthstone," she whispered, stepping closer. As she reached out, the ground beneath her feet trembled, and a deep voice echoed through the clearing. "Who dares disturb the stone of earth?" The moss shifted, and the boulder began to move, revealing itself as a great, hulking creature made of stone and roots. Its eyes glowed a bright green, and its voice rumbled like thunder. "I mean no harm," Eleanor said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I am the keeper, here to restore balance." The creature studied her for a long moment before speaking again. "If you are truly the keeper, prove your worth. Only one with a heart as steadfast as the earth may claim this stone." Eleanor took a deep breath. She didn't know what the trial would entail, but she was ready to face it. The Earth Guardian towered before Eleanor, its immense form blending seamlessly with the forest around them. It was as though the creature had risen from the ground itself, a living embodiment of the strength and resilience of the land. Its glowing green eyes bore into hers, unyielding and ancient. To claim the Earthstone, the Guardian rumbled, its voice deep and resonant. "You must prove you are as steadfast as the earth and as nurturing as its soil. Only those who respect the balance of life and bear the weight of responsibility may succeed." Eleanor tightened her grip on the golden key, which hummed faintly in her pocket, a silent reassurance of her purpose. "What must I do?" she asked. The Guardian extended a massive hand made of stone and root, its palm opening to reveal a patch of fertile soil. A single seed rested in the center, glimmering faintly with a soft, golden light. "You will grow this seed into a sapling," the Guardian said. "But be warned, the task will not be simple. The forest will test your resolve and your heart. Nourish the seed, protect it, and prove yourself worthy." The ground beneath Eleanor shifted, and a circle of trees rose around the clearing, their branches weaving into an impenetrable canopy overhead. The sunlight dimmed, replaced by the cool, green glow of moss and the faint luminescence of fungi scattered across the forest floor. Eleanor gently took the seed from the Guardian's hand, its warmth a surprising contrast to the cool air. She knelt and pressed it into the soft soil, covering it with care. "What now?" she whispered to herself. The guardian's voice echoed again. You must provide what the seed needs to thrive: water, light, and protection. The forest will not make this easy. But remember, Keeper the Earth rewards patience and perseverance. The creature sank back into the ground, its form blending once more with the mossy boulder, leaving Eleanor alone with her task. Eleanor studied the clearing. No streams ran nearby, and the air was thick with stillness. Whiskers, who had been watching quietly from a distance, padded over to her side, his sharp green eyes scanning their surroundings. We need water, Eleanor said, brushing her hand across the soil. The seed seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive and waiting. She took out the compass Lysandra had given her, hoping it might guide her. The needle spun wildly for a moment before pointing to a dense thicket at the edge of the clearing. That's as good a place to start as any, she said, rising to her feet. The thicket was dense and unyielding, its brambles clawing at her cardigan and snagging her hair. Whiskers navigated it with ease, his nimble form slipping through the gaps, but Eleanor had to push and pull her way through, her hands scraped raw by the thorny vines. At last, she broke through to find a small, hidden spring bubbling gently in a moss-covered hollow. The water was crystal clear, its surface shimmering faintly with an otherworldly light. As Eleanor leaned forward to fill her cupped hands, the ground trembled, and a creature emerged from the water. A serpent-like figure made entirely of liquid, its translucent form flowing and shifting like a stream. You seek the water of life, the creature hissed, its voice like the babbling of a brook, but it is not freely given. Prove you will not waste it. How, Eleanor asked, her voice steady. The creature swirled around her, its form shifting into the shape of a woman with flowing hair made of water. Answer this: what does water do, Keeper? Eleanor thought for a moment. Water sustains life, she said. It nourishes the earth, quenches thirst, and cleanses what is unclean. The creature's liquid eyes gleamed. And what else does water do? It can destroy, Eleanor added. It carves through rock, it drowns, it erodes. Water is powerful, but it must be respected. The creature nodded, a faint smile forming on its fluid face. You speak the truth. Take what you need, and no more. Eleanor carefully filled a small leather pouch she carried with the glowing water, thanking the creature as it melted back into the spring. Back at the clearing, Eleanor poured the enchanted water onto the soil. The seed absorbed it instantly, and within moments, a tiny green sprout emerged. Eleanor's heart swelled with hope, but the clearing remained dim, the canopy above blocking any sunlight. The guardian's words echoed in her mind: nourish the seed, protect it. Light, she murmured. But how can I give it light in a place like this? The compass pulsed again, and the needle pointed upward toward the dense canopy. Eleanor looked around for a way to climb, finally spotting a tree with low, gnarled branches. Stay here, Whiskers, she said, though the cat simply sat and licked his paw, unconcerned. The climb was more challenging than she'd anticipated. The bark was rough and slippery with moss, and her hands, already raw from the brambles, stung with every grip. But she pressed on, her determination outweighing her discomfort. At the top of the tree, she found a patch where the branches thinned, allowing a sliver of sunlight to stream through. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the golden key, which seemed to shimmer brighter in the light. Holding it aloft, she angled it toward the clearing below. The key acted like a prism, refracting the sunlight into a warm, golden beam that illuminated the sapling. The young plant seemed to drink in the light, growing taller and stronger before her eyes. The mossy boulder in the center of the clearing began to glow, and the Earth Guardian emerged once more. "You have proven yourself, Keeper," it said, its voice resonating with approval. "You are as steadfast as the earth, and as nurturing as its soil. The Earthstone is yours to wield." The sapling's leaves shimmered with golden light, and as Eleanor knelt beside it, the Earthstone emerged from its base. It was a deep, rich green, warm to the touch, and pulsing faintly with life. Eleanor held the stone in her hands, feeling its energy flow through her. She looked up at the Guardian, her resolve strengthened. "Thank you. I will protect the valley with everything I have." The Guardian nodded solemnly before sinking back into the ground. The clearing brightened, the trees seeming less imposing, and the air filled with the soft hum of balance restored. Eleanor tucked the Earthstone safely into her satchel, her journey far from over. 4 more stones awaited her, each with its own trials and challenges. As she stepped out of the forest, Whiskers trotting beside her, the meadow greeted her with its familiar warmth. Eleanor felt a renewed sense of purpose. The valley had chosen her for a reason, and she would not fail. Eleanor's journey through the valley tested her in ways she had never imagined. After claiming the Earthstone, she traveled to the hidden places of the valley to retrieve the other Heartstone's water, fire, air, and spirit. Each challenge was more harrowing than the last, requiring not only her courage and wit, but her compassion and understanding. The Waterstone was found in the heart of an underground lake, guarded by a serpent of tides that demanded Eleanor confront her deepest fears. The Firestone lay within a volcanic cavern, its guardian testing her resolve under the searing heat of doubt. The Airstone was hidden among treacherous cliffs, where Eleanor had to place her trust in unseen winds to guide her. Finally, the Spirit Stone rested in a grove of eternal twilight, where she faced the echoes of her own past to embrace her role as keeper fully. With all 5 stones gathered, Eleanor returned to the meadow under a star-strewn sky. The golden key glowed fiercely now, guiding her to the ancient oak tree where her journey had begun. She placed the Heartstones in the hollow of its roots, and a brilliant light erupted from the ground, racing through the valley like a pulse of life. The shadows that had crept into the corners of the valley dissolved into nothingness, and the air filled with the harmonious hum of balance restored. The meadow bloomed with renewed vitality, its magic stronger and more vibrant than ever before. The Guardians appeared one last time, their forms shimmering with gratitude. The Earth Guardian spoke, "For them all you have proven yourself, Keeper. The valley's magic is safe in your hands. May you guide it with wisdom and love." As the Guardians faded, Eleanor stood alone under the ancient oak. The golden key, now dim and cool in her hand, would no longer glow. It had served its purpose. Eleanor looked out across the valley, her heart swelling with a profound sense of belonging. This land was not only her refuge, but her responsibility. She had become more than its keeper, she was a part of its soul. And so, with Whiskers at her side, Eleanor returned to her cottage, where the fire burned warmly and the promise of peaceful days stretched before her. She knew the valley would always call her, but now she was ready to answer.